G'day everyone and welcome back to another episode of Practical Powerlifting. Today I get to speak to successful coach and entrepreneur Kelly Mann. Kelly is an exercise physiologist turned powerlifting coach extraordinaire based in Brisbane. She owns a exercise physiology combined powerlifting gym in Brisbane called Perform Motion, a very successful coaching franchise which offers both online coaching and face-to-face work and a physical space of training, of course, the gym. She has a number of accolades to her name and has coached some of the best lifters in the world. And in this episode, we talk a lot about the importance of self-care and mental health and how coaches need to take care of themselves before they're able to take on and care for others. She shares extensively about her experience with ADHD and how that's shaped her coaching style. And she emphasizes the significance of building relationships with clients and the role of empathy in coaching. It was honestly an awesome episode. Kelly has a lot of wisdom to share and a lot of energy, of course, a lot of passion for the sport of powerlifting and for problem solving and helping lifters get the most out of themselves and compete at the highest levels. So I do hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks. I'm constantly having conversations with people and they're so distracted by the shiny new stuff because it's cool, like you're learning about programming and you're learning about these this cool acronym and this cool thing, and it's like, yeah, that's all true, but it's like, you're lazy or chickens. Like your clients are waiting for the chicken. Do the program. They're turning up to gym on a Monday and they're like, hey coach, where's my program? I'm like, like when I'm mentoring young coaches, I'm like, if you can be on time, professional, communicate, if you can do all those things, you're already better than 60% of the coaches in the industry, because 100%. So many coaches in the industry can't even do the basics.
Exactly. I think the holes do come into the coaching when it comes to having a client list where you do the groundwork and you do the hustle and you get a full client list, but then you haven't got your work schedule set out, or you haven't got your and that's one thing that I fell into big time is I was doing face-to-face, and face-to-face was like session after session after session, and it was easy, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, you had that time with that person. And then when I flipped to online coaching, I had half face-to-face and half online, and I had absolutely no systems in my head on how I would set my days out. And that really, really burnt me out, and it really bit me in the ass a lot. And it was one of the hardest things that I learned. And I think now that I'm mentoring, it's one of the first things that I mentor. Like, do you have a calendar? Do you know what you're doing every day? Do you segment your day out? Do you have your phone off when you're training? Do you train away from the gym that you work at? Like, all those things are so important to have under control so that you're able to provide a service to, between 20 and 50 other people.
Yeah, look, one thing you said to me, in your little pre-show questionnaire, was about one thing that kind of stood out to me was you kind of mentioned attending to yourself before kind of helping others, and it's kind of like almost what you're kind of saying there. It's like you do have to take care of yourself, your own schedule, your own mental health before you're able to coach others. And I thought that was like a thing that you didn't say it exactly like that, but you did say, you repeated that sentiment a couple of times, which I noticed.
That's one of the hardest things I've learned. It's one of the hardest things I learned. Was to tend to my own needs and meet my own needs before I could communicate clearly. And it was about understanding myself and what I needed. And it's just like small things. Like, I will work every day because that's my comfort zone. And not because I'm obsessed with work, but because I enjoy it. You know what I mean? I enjoy it and I like it. But then, just last night I had a conversation with my partner and I'm like, fuck, I haven't had a day off since we got home from Europe. And I was like, I need to take a weekend off of just not speaking to anyone and just tending to my own needs, because you get stuck in cycles, and that's what being a human is, right? We tend to go through cycles, and the cycles are either self-reflective cycles or cycles of destruction. And it could be yourself or your relationship or friendships or anything like that. And we don't realize those cycles. So it's really important for me to take a step back and be like, okay, this week my phone time has gotten out of hand. And when my phone time gets out of hand, then I don't sleep well. If I don't sleep well, then I'm tired. If I'm tired, then I can't be myself. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like making sure that I'm looking after those things so that I can present myself in the best way possible to everyone else around me and myself included.
Yeah, you mentioned that, this is something that you learned the hard way.
Big
This was
time.
affecting your work. Like you found that the fact that you weren't taking care of yourself for a period or you weren't prioritizing yourself was affecting your output, your actual, because like obviously you love
Is
work, like you said, but
yeah, affecting myself physically first. So weight gain, stress, not looking after myself, then not being able to communicate well around and what was going on and how I was feeling. So I just went through a couple of really, really hard years personally, and coincided with an ADHD diagnosis, which was great. But if you don't know those things about yourself and then you're trying to help other people, it becomes really hard to help other people because you haven't helped yourself. So, I think, of course, that does bleed into all things around you. Some of those things, may have, like some of those relationships or things may have needed to end anyway. But, it's a hard learning curve, to be, over 40 years old and realizing, shit, I haven't been looking after myself. I haven't been doing the things that I need to do. That's why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. So a big focus for me is to make sure that I'm, checking in with myself mentally, so I can, provide what I need to provide for those around me as well.
was that a big like learning experience, your ADHD diagnosis? Was that a moment where you realized
Yeah.
you figured out some things about your own self?
Oh, it's a cycle, and to be fair, it's funny because I've actually helped a few people around me with the same cycle. The cycle of burnout, frustration. Why can't I get through a day of work like everyone else can? Why do I have a headache? Why am I confused? Why am I, forgetting everything? Things like that. And I think, the female diagnosis of ADHD is getting more and more, but there's the other things that females experience that males don't, that affect ADHD, like cycle in a big way. So, I think for me, it's like at first it's anger. For me, it was like anger, like I can't believe that I felt this way for like 40 years and no one said to me, hey, Kelly, I think you might have ADHD. But then when I finally figured it out, everyone around me was like, oh yeah, you definitely have ADHD. I'm like, what the
Why
fuck
didn't
did
you
you
fucking tell
tell
me?
me? And then I think like it's not just the diagnosis itself, it's the self-learning that you do around the diagnosis. And it's putting the pieces together. Like,
Piecing things together, yeah.
oh, that's why, my phone, makes me feel overloaded. That's why I need to work from home once or twice a week. That's why I'm like, sometimes just need to be alone. You know what I mean? And like for me now, every new client that I have and every client that I do have knows that I have ADHD, and I'm really, really communicative around it with my needs, and I feel that really has helped me to grow relationships within my client base, and retention is unbelievable now. In terms of, I don't have a high turnover, and when you forget things and you're not able to communicate and the program's late and stuff like that, and you go, well, I'm working so hard and I don't know why I'm forgetting all these things. So it's, for me, it was anger and then acceptance, and then, okay, at the same time going through a breakup, and then, going, okay, cool, I'm going to spend some real time by myself, and, went through all the self-help books and listened to all the podcasts on ADHD and all that stuff, just to learn. And I think that was a very valuable time for me, because now when I do have someone I'm onboarding, I'm like, I have ADHD, so if we're talking, I need dot points, and I need this, I need that, and that will mean that I can respond to you in the best way possible. And I find putting out those expectations really, really helps.
I imagine so, yeah. And imagine also that, like all this like reading that you did and the self-help stuff and podcasts like that you described was almost like very, I imagine it was very validating going like, okay, like all these experiences I have, they're not just random, they're actually like logical and make sense. And I know now how to maximize my performance based on who I am
Yeah.
rather than
And
like the culture that we have of like, certain expectations. Like, well, those don't work for me, but what I find works for me is this.
exactly. And the one thing that really helps is empathizing with yourself. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. And I used to get really worried about making a mistake, and it goes like deep, like, in terms of, I used to have to study so fucking hard for exams, like so hard, to the point where I would study so hard that I'd forget everything that was on the exam and then go, why? And so like I didn't realize, like, through uni I was adapting to the way that I learned without realizing that, there could be something there that I can take that would mean that I could actually sit down and consume information. But I didn't realize that I was adapting because I couldn't consume information by writing, because I literally have the worst handwriting in the world. Like, I can't, if like I get my partner to write cards because I can't write at all. And I didn't realize. So like the first 3 years of uni, I was like writing out all these notes and wouldn't even be able to make sense of it, and it would just burn me out. But then, 20 years later, finally realizing, it's like you feel like you're reborn again. You know what I mean?
You're piecing things together, understanding yourself. And the interesting thing I find is, when you're young, like your 20-year-old self, and you look at people who are in their 30s and 40s,
Yeah.
and you think that they all have it together, and then you're realizing as you get older, no one's got their shit together.
No one's
Everyone's
got their shit
figuring it
together.
out as they go.
Nah, everyone is scrambling.
Everyone is scrambling. Is a good way to put it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
And
we're all...
it's very comforting to know. It's like, okay, well, because we are in a world where like everyone's showing their highlight reel on social media, and
Yeah.
you're seeing what other people are doing, the success they're having, and the businesses they're building, and the clients they're coaching, and the success in every way, and then you think, well, fuck, I'm doing so much wrong. How did I just spend
Yeah.
3 hours scrolling through Instagram and not doing anything on a Wednesday
Yeah.
afternoon? Like, that's not good, and it isn't good, of course, but so is other people. Like, other people have their vices and their weaknesses and their errors and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone does. So I find it's better to be upfront about it now. And I don't even think ADHD is a weakness, to be honest. When you manage it, it's fucking powerful, man. Because, like...
When you know how to harness it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's creative. Like, super creative. And it's really good for thinking big picture. And I lost that for a while. When I started medication, I lost my creativeness because my whole way of thinking was just changed, so I was like, oh, okay. But now it's allowed me to like step out processes and finish the actual process, which is a crazy thing for someone with ADHD, to actually finish a project.
Yeah. In many ways, it can be a bit of a superpower, I suppose, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
for example, like the hyperfixation that some people experience can be a good thing, and you see people around you who are like really good at that. I know I experienced that as well, like an ability to just like hyperfixate and lock in on something to the detriment of other areas of my life. But
Yeah, that was me. I was so hyperfixated. I was so hyperfixated on work that I would just work. Like, for no reason. I'm just working all the time. And then I'd get cranky that I'm working. And it would be this round and round and round circle. So now it's just like, I don't really have hyperfixations anymore. I just allow myself to, if I feel like I want to dive into this program, or if I feel like I want to dive into something on ChatGPT, I just do it.
do you think in some ways that hyperfixation was and is a strength in some, like as it relates to your work especially, is a strength? Because, I look at you and I see like what I was describing before, people around me kicking goals, and you're one of them. I look up to you, like you've got perf, you've got such a successful roster, like it looks like you're killing it externally, and you are. Do you think that ability to like, yeah, lock in and really hyperfixate on a goal, move forward in that way actually has been a strength of yours?
Yeah, I think there is a reason why a lot of sports people and business owners are neurodivergent, that's for sure. Because you do have the ability to continue to keep going on the same thing for a long period of time without giving up, and able to think big picture and laterally when it comes to change and adapting. I think that is a big strength, for sure. I think if you are self-aware enough through the process, like I remember when I moved from the previous location into the location we had now, I worked so hard through the whole thing that I actually didn't sit back that whole time and go, fuck, I just did this. I didn't give myself any credit. I was just like, yep, we moved, let's go. Coincidentally, 2022, 2023, and pretty much half of 2024. No, actually not 2024, 2022, 2023, I was burnt the fuck out. Because I wasn't able to sit back through that process and actually, sit back and go, I'm doing this, I just hyperfixated on it to the point where I was cooked after, and now we're about to do it again, and it's a completely different experience for me because I'm able to step it out and able to go, okay, we need to achieve this week. This week we need to achieve this. I still feel fucking tired, working a lot, but it's not, it feels completely different.
There's what you just described that reminds me of like a meme I've seen or some like sentiment, which is like, if you achieve your goals, it's like, good, that was expected. And if you don't achieve your goals, then I'm a total failure and I can't believe I've done that. And it's a little bit like that. It's like you've moved and you've done this really grand thing, but you just shrug your shoulders, like, well, duh, like, of course that was going to happen. And I don't have time to celebrate it because I've got to do the next thing now.
Yeah,
Like, we're just going
it's
to keep
really
moving forward.
weird. Yeah, it's really weird. And I've had that with a few other people in my life that are similar to me. They're not able to take the small wins or not able to go, yep, that was great. And
Because it's almost expected of yourself. It's like, I'm a
yeah,
high achiever. That's what I do. And then I just move forward.
that's it. That's it. Like I did, and I repeated that process a few times. I remember when I was graduating uni, the first time I have 2 degrees. My first degree, I failed my way through it miserably. I fucking hated it. I just hated the whole degree. It took me 8 years to get through. I didn't even want to do it. Like, could you imagine me as a high school teacher?
So that's what you're doing, education? I was going to ask
Yeah,
you
of
to
course, doing
walk me
education.
back.
Yeah, like, no, I'm not a high school teacher. And then I was really I was really guilty about the fact that it took me, even though in that 8 years I traveled the world twice, backpacked Europe, did things. I worked my ass off in a shopping center and made 20 grand and took it overseas. And I did all those things, and now I look back on it and go, fuck yeah, like that was so good. I spent 2 years in Canada, a
I
year
should be proud of
in,
myself.
yeah, but I was ashamed that it took me that long to get through the uni degree, that in my second degree, when I decided I'm going to go back and do what I should have done in the first place, which was exercise physiology, I studied so hard to prove to myself that I could get a GPA of 7. And I did. And then I finished it, and I finished the degree and spent 2 weeks pretty much so burnt out in bed that I couldn't move. You know what I mean? So like I won't put myself through that again. And that's the cycles of ADHD for me. Like push yourself so hard, so hard, so hard, dead. And now I refuse to do that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to walk us back a little bit with your background. Like, just talk us through a bit of your background, because a lot of people listening to this won't know a lot about who you are. I mean, of course, maybe some of your own kind of followers and people around you will be watching this and know a bit more of your story. But yeah, you have your start in exercise physiology.
Yeah, and that wasn't until I was 30.
You started the degree when you were 30.
Yep.
Wow. And for a lot of people, a lot of young coaches these days, we refer to young coaches starting when they're 18, 19, 20, going straight to uni.
When I was 8, I finished high school and I struggled to get an OP of 10. We have OP up here, which means that it gets you into uni. Like a 10 was good. Like anything 10 and below was good. I got a 10. So I was like, okay, cool. Was like, oh, well, that's going to get me into a teaching degree. So I started that and I was just like, I fucking hate this. But uni back in 2000s wasn't the same as uni now. Like, I'm talking like internet was just a thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it was, a very different experience. And for someone like me, if you didn't go to uni, like you didn't learn, you didn't get anything. You know what I mean? That was like, now it's like they got this fucking big blackboard thing where you can go get all the recordings and sit there forever and, catch up. And if you can't understand something, you just go and see someone. We didn't have that, so I really struggled. And then, I just kept deferring and quitting. And then I got back from overseas and I went into a job, and it was my first and last desk job. I hated it. And I was kind of like floating, and I was like, and then I just, in that period, because I felt super lost. Like I was like, I had no idea what I wanted to do at all. Like,
and at this time, if you don't mind me interrupting, at this time, like, what was your relationship with like physical fitness, training, exercise?
Yeah, so at that time, I think just before that, at that time I was getting into exercise physiology, and when I went there, then I started, I met a dude, and he was like, I'm opening up a powerlifting gym. Do you want to come and train at my powerlifting gym? And I was like, yeah, sure. So me and my partner at the time went and started training at that powerlifting gym, and then I was like, oh, okay, I was going to compete, and that was back like 2014, 15. Back when you were like in your prime, mate.
Back in my heyday.
Not that you're not now.
A little bit behind. We're working back up there. We've had other successes. We focused on other things. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, so the natural progression was to do some comps, and I'm not strong. Like, I'm not strong, and training for powerlifting was not it for me. I just don't have a good stress tolerance, and I guess that goes into my training now and how I train. So with going through uni and trying to compete in powerlifting, it was just too much for me. Like, I couldn't do it. So I did a couple of comps, and then I just realized at that time I really enjoyed coaching people, which to everyone around me was probably like, duh. But I didn't I just wasn't self-aware enough to know. So I just gradually started coaching people, and I was in, and then I had a full-time job that I got my Cert 3 and 4 at. And then I just gradually started coaching people towards local competitions. And then I moved from that gym over to another gym, Panthers Powerlifting, and it just grew from there. And the first people, there was no online coaching at all. And the first people I was coaching, there's a few of them that are still with me today, which is fantastic. And I think the whole lot was face-to-face. The whole lot was just local competitions. I was really lucky that I was working with Colin Webb at the time, and I was really lucky that I got to experience him when he was lifting at a high level as well, which was a really cool experience. And it just like literally just grew from there. I just really enjoyed it, and I think that I think I got some really valuable experience with doing face-to-face throughout the whole time that I was doing my EP degree. So I just spent some really valuable years building rapport with people and, basic programming, and just witnessing like what was working and what wasn't working. And I wasn't very good. Like, I wasn't a very good powerlifting coach. It's taken a lot for me to learn how to program and how to read data and stuff like that. But I think like the face-to-face stuff was very valuable. And then through uni, by the time I graduated, I was working at Valhalla, and I just had a full book, and I noticed that there was a lot of powerlifters at that time who were really broken. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I think I might start saying that I'm going to help rehab them. And that's how we started. And then Tom went to uni with me, and I reached out to someone, Drew, I think it was, who owns Valhalla at Southside. And he said, Tom Haynes trains here. You should take him on. He's brilliant the way he thinks. And it just went from there.
Thanks for sharing all that. There's like a lot that I've written all these points that I want to ask
Sorry,
you
I
about.
probably just like blurted all that out.
No, it's good. And this is the thing. The context is important because I think, again, like I said, especially for someone who might not know much about your background, it's very fascinating. And I think you have a very unique, you have both a unique entry into powerlifting, but also a unique result. Like a lot of people start powerlifting in a similar way that you did, but not many of them go coach at Sheffield, right? And so this transition from I'm not a very good lifter and I'm not a very good powerlifting coach, and then you blink, and then suddenly you're at the biggest powerlifting competition that's ever been held, coaching some of the greatest athlete, like one of the greatest athletes of our modern time. Like I think that's a transition that people want to know about and understand, because you went from, in your own words, not a very good powerlifting coach and not a very good lifter to a very good powerlifting coach who understands very good lifters and I think, you talked a little bit about buy-in and building relationships, building trust.
Yep.
And one of the easiest ways, and I will say this from personal experience because I am and have been a good lifter, one of the easiest ways to get buy-in from a lifter is to be a good lifter yourself, because people trust that. Right? And so when you don't have that background, it's like 3 times as much work to build that trust and to have, if you're a freaking 550 dots lifter, 120 GL lifter, and you're like asking for advice from your coach who hasn't been there and hasn't done that. A lot of people find that hard. Admittedly, a lot of people will find that difficult, but you have managed to earn the trust and earn respectfully so, earn that buy-in. And so I think that's what people want to kind of understand and figure out. How did you go from, I have no idea what I'm doing, to holy shit, I've got this really strong reputation, people trust me.
It was a process, man. Like I struggled at the start. I really did. I remember a lot not feeling like, I always, and this is the thing that I don't realize that I do it, but now I realize I do it when I'm older. I walk my own path. So if I'm got athletes and, I want to know how to improve, you know what I'm saying? And it's hard. It was hard at the start. Like, I think I don't want to lean in too hard at the start from being female. I think that's a part of it. But I think what you just said with not having strong lifters, or not being a strong lifter yourself, that's the other part. That's the two, the female and then not strong. So I never really thought that I had to prove myself, and I'm grateful that I didn't think that way, because that can be a toxic mindset. It was more on that I love seeing people around me succeed, and I think that was a bit of a savior in it. But now that I look back, like I don't care about people around me. So if I'm working at a gym, like I'm not gonna invest in what other people think. And I think that I struggled a lot early on in my career with not being accepted and not, being put up there as like, someone who's good at their job or is really good. And I think that, Meg putting up that post of me being the first female at Sheffield, like I didn't even think about it at all. Like I wouldn't have even said it because I don't really think that way. Like I'm not like, yeah, I'm the first fucking female at Sheffield. Do you know what I mean? Like
in some ways you don't think it's relevant.
I don't think it's relevant, no. And that's just me, that's how I think. And that can be my own detriment, because then I don't sit back and go, yeah. You know what I mean? But I think, I'm not going to call it luck, but Steve and I have we've told this story a bit, that Steve reached out to me in 2021 and said, I'd really love to come and work at Perth. And by that stage, like Steve and I had known each other since like 2015. Like I handled him at a comp in Townsville or something like that. So we had a fair bit of history. And he is very similar to me. We're very honest and upfront. And like when he came on, he was like, I I don't know how to promote myself, but I know you do. You're not good at programming. I'll teach you. And you know what I mean? So it was kind of like, that was something that, helped me to get to that next level when it comes to coaching and comes to getting people really, really strong. Because you can get people really strong, but getting people really, really, really strong is a different ballgame. So I think that was an experience that helped, but it wasn't really like sit down and like teach maths. It was just, let's collab. You do your thing, I'll do my thing, and work together.
Do you know what's standing out to me hearing you talk about this is, I asked, how do you go from being a not a very good powerlifting coach to being as successful as you are? You mentioned collaborating with Tom Haynes,
Yep.
Colin Webb, Stephen Day. It sounds like surrounding yourself by people who have different skills, but are same mindset, locked in,
Yep.
successful has been an important part of your growth and process.
Big time. I don't really have and that's another thing with other coaches. Like, I love having those conversations where you just bounce off each other and be like, hey, I've got this person in a plateau and I can't fucking get them out. Let's sit down. Like, what do you see here? Like I asked one of my coaches last week, my client's about to get her period right in the middle of the taper. She feels like shit. Should I change it? He was like, what does the data say? And I said, no, don't change it. Don't change it. Had a banger of a comp. You know what I mean? Like, so that stuff's real important to me, and I don't see that as a weakness. I see that as growth.
Having those minds around you,
And
being able to
I
ask for help.
promote that at work. We really promote that with our values of collaboration and teamwork. That if you've got a problem and you can't figure it out, please bring it up so we can work it out together. Because a lot of the times, people, if you're looking at creating a service that people want to be under, right? It's got to be about collaboration. Like, you have to be, because you're working with another person. People don't work with like, do this, okay, anymore.
Like that sort of authoritarian style doesn't suit you.
Authoritarian dictatorship, like I just don't believe in that type of coaching.
It sounds like your view of coaching is very problem solving. It's
Yes.
like you kind of said that story about, hey, going to one of your coaches, hey, I've got this context. They were on a plateau or they're getting their period
Yeah.
during a taper, whatever it might be. So
Yeah.
you're like presenting it as, this is a problem and I need to find the solution. It's very like puzzle
Yeah.
based almost. It's like a puzzle. How do I solve this puzzle? Every
Yeah.
athlete's a puzzle.
Yep, 100%. They are. Yeah. If you
And
look
so
at it
you're
that
trying
way,
to,
but a puzzle still is a human. You're a human puzzle. Humans are a puzzle, aren't we?
we're very, we're very complicated. One thing as well is that one thing that I want to bring up actually is that you mentioned to me that results come from building relationships was one thing you
Yep.
said, not just the program itself. A lot of people think
Definitely.
they need the best program when what they really need to do is chip away over time. And so you've made this like assertion or point that how important relationships are,
Yeah.
and building those relationships with your client. And then one thing I thought was so interesting at the start of our conversation was you talking about how when you're onboarding someone new, you're very quick to tell them about your ADHD, and like for a lot of people that's a personal thing, but you're already sharing these personal things very very early with people. And
I,
I think that can be very potent because you're showing that vulnerability early on,
yeah.
and almost gives them permission to then share their vulnerabilities and say,
Yeah.
hey, I also have my deficiencies right at day one. Like we've been chatting for 5 minutes and you're already sharing these personal things. I think it's almost like a
Yeah.
strength of yours to just connect in that way so quickly.
Yeah, I think it's important because I think, like, otherwise, I'm sure you've heard of like masking. Otherwise, you're just chasing your tail. You're just not telling people who you are. And I think that you cannot coach an athlete for a period of time without knowing something personal about them. You just can't. So I think it's important that not only a coach, but a leader at work, and that shows vulnerability, because that's how you grow relationships, is making mistakes. That's it.
We all make mistakes, as we said before. We're all like puzzles and stuff, and I think just like in order to build those relationships, you need to show those vulnerabilities. That's one thing that
Yeah.
I've spoken about before in the past about my wife Billy, is that she's really good at that, whereas I'm a little bit more reserved in that sense. And I've learned a lot from her about how she's able to connect with people by being vulnerable, by sharing personal details. Of course, with a client, there has to be some level of professional distance and
Oh,
relationship. But
yeah.
if you're so closed off that they don't feel like they know you, then how are you supposed to ever know them if they don't share their things? And so you've made
Yeah.
a really big point that like the relationships are more important than the program sometimes. And
Yeah, they
that's
are.
clearly like a key tenet of your coaching process, I guess.
Yeah, they are, because it's impossible to think that everyone on your client list is going to be, they're not robots. So we're going to have weeks where you get sick in the middle of a peak, or, you get your period at the wrong time, or you've had a breakup, or work stress. Work stress is huge, especially in Australia. So it's important for me for those times that people put their hand up and be like, didn't get session 4 done this week, needed to lie on the couch with a eye mask on, couldn't see anyone, didn't want to. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like, it's okay. The world isn't going to burn down if you don't say you're having a hard time.
Does that change though, depending on the person? Like, if you're coaching someone who has big goals and big aspirations and says they have big goals and big aspirations, do you have to be a little bit harder on someone and say, like, if you want these things, you've got to, toughen up at some
Yeah,
point?
definitely. Like, that's the directness that comes out in me. But there's a time and a place, right? And if you, even with online coaching, you need to know when that time and a place is. And that's where building the relationships helps. Like, to be able to say and meet that person at that level and be like, hey, you probably didn't pace the block well, or XYZ. Like, those are the conversations that you can have. And the ability to have those hard conversations is super important, because people are, they're coming to you for a result. And first and foremost, it's checking in on whether that result is still there. Like, is that a goal? Do you still want that? If you still want that goal, I'm in with you. If the goal changes, let me know.
If there's like I'm going to use the term young coach, but I'm saying new coach. If there's a new coach listening to this, and there will be a few, who are just dipping their toes in, they're helping out their mates, they're running a few programs, but they're really thinking this could become a career of mine.
Yeah.
What kind of advice could you give them in terms of what we're talking about now here, in terms of building trust and building relationships? How can they get better at these skills? Because you don't learn this at an EP degree, right? You don't learn this at uni. You don't learn this in
You do kind of learn it. You do. The EP degree does a lot of face-to-face work.
Okay, cool.
That degree is really good for learning how to structure communication when you're trying to get details out of people.
Wow, cool.
And that is the biggest thing that I have noticed with, we take on new coaches and you sit into the initial consultation. They're just so nervous, or it's the first time that details are missed, or it's rushed, or it's all about the program, without going, hey, why are you here? Like, what are we doing? That's it. If they, because they fill out a form, right? And they put their best total in, and then they put in how many times a week they train. They put in, like, what they do in their downtime. They put in all these details. But those details are just filling out a form. They're not actually sitting in front of someone, if you're not in the same country or whatever, in front of them and going, okay, cool. Like, how are you, and what would you like to achieve under your coaching with me? And what are some things, and then asking the right questions, like what might get in the way? Are some days with your job, asking about job and asking about life, kids, how often do they holiday, that type of stuff, that can help set the overall scope of the person in front of you, so you can get an idea of how hard are they really going to train? How much time can they really put into their training? You know what I mean? Because everyone wants to be the best at what they do. But the best version needs to be the best version of themselves. And not everyone is going to be a world champion. Like, most people aren't. So if their goal is to go to local competitions, get them to their local competition goal and, stick to that goal and make sure that you're aware of that together. And then, you get those people that go, oh, I'm going to do the local and then I want to total 150 kilos more 6 months later. And you're like, just understanding those people because they're different, and just understanding the person in front of you and what they want to achieve is a really vital thing to know as a coach, and remember that from the very first conversation you have with them.
Yeah, so it's like asking the right questions. And it sounds like a lot of the questions you're asking aren't even related to their literal training.
No, because powerlifting is not a professional sport. So, it's about how can we fit in the training model around your life so it's sustainable for the longest period of time.
I think a lot of new coaches get distracted, like I said at the very start of this conversation, by the details, by the programming and by the exercise selection and by this and then you have lifters that are skipping sessions consistently and they say, well, you need to stop skipping your sessions, rather than thinking to the root of the cause, like why are you skipping your day 4?
Yeah.
Why are you skipping day 4 every fortnight? Why are you skipping, what's the actual cause of these things? And it sounds like you're saying as a coach, this is on us. Like you actually have to address these issues.
And
a lot of coaches out there would say, well, if they're not doing their day 4, if they're skipping day 4 every fortnight, well, they don't want it enough. And that's not on me. That's on them.
No.
But there are people that think like that.
There are. And you know what? Sometimes like I had not that long ago, like even a few weeks ago, I had an athlete of mine say that she was going to move on from coaching, and I knew exactly why. We'd been working together for so long, and then she'd asked me a few things to change in the program, and I did, but I didn't meet her enough to the way that she was used to, and that was on me. And straight away I said, oh my God, we got disconnected. Our relationship got disconnected. We weren't connected well enough for a period of time, and I'm really sorry. And she just said, oh, that speaks volumes, thank you. Because that was right. We just got disconnected, and that happens. So it's really important. It's going to happen no matter how good you are with coaching or how long you've been in the game for. At times, relationships will become disconnected, and if you don't have the ability to understand why each person, what they're going through, not to the point where you're checking in with them every day, hey, how's your dog? How's your dog? How's your dog? But, being able to be hey, yeah, no worries on Friday. I know Thursday's such a shit day for you at work. If you want to catch it up Saturday, go for it.
Yeah, understanding I think, just hearing what you say is it's also obvious and logical, I think, to anybody that's got a good amount of experience. But again, I think some people can just miss the boat and I mean, the story that you shared just then about that lifter of yours who you felt disconnected with is such a great story to hear, because like I said earlier, social media and what we see online can be such a highlights reel. And it's Kelly makes mistakes, man. So do I.
Man.
And so does anyone worth their salt.
Yeah, man. Far out. Big time.
Yeah, it can be very challenging. I've mentioned a couple of times, but you've had some amazing success in your coaching business and your coaching practice at Perth, coaching some extraordinary high level lifters. What are some of the key, factors you think are separating these high level lifters? And you said earlier, actually, one thing I want to point out was you said it's one thing to make someone strong, but it's another thing to make them really, really, really strong. And I think a lot of people listening to this will want to know what might be those things, or how do you approach your coaching, and does it change between someone that's got that 100 GL that wants to get to 105 or 110 versus someone who's at 60 and wants to get to 70?
It honestly, it is, and I know this gets thrown around on social media so much, but with the sport like powerlifting, it really is just consistency. It really is. It's just consistency, and I think that the ones that are at that top level, the sacrifices are real. It is a sport where you have to have your nutrition on point. Not all year round. But if you're natural and you're not on PDs, it's you've got to really, and not that they don't need to train hard too, because they do, but it's the training age really comes into it. and how long you've been in the game for and all those things, and being able to adapt to that based on factors that are going on outside life, like, age, maybe you're dropping a weight class so you can't train as hard, that type of thing. Being self-aware around that, I think, is super important. And the ones that are at that next level are, it's not like, and this is where it gets a bad name too, where it's like, train through everything. You've got to train all the time. You know what I mean? But I think it's just being about being a little bit more self-aware of when your body's in a good position to push and when it's in a good position to float a little. And I think that is a really learned thing. And I think that's where mindset skills come in at that top level. And that's where checking in with athletes at that top level, going, okay, this block, you've got other things going on, but you're still performing, right? And just those things, a lot of it is self-talk, and a lot of it is the mindset skills around staying at that top level, and coaching is very similar. And one thing which seems really counterintuitive with coaching is the more, not with the data pulling, but the more I've got my head across what is in the program, the less I think about it outside of closing my laptop. And that is a really important thing, to be able to disconnect yourself from thinking about that person's program or that person's lifting, because they're not going to die if they have one bad session. And things can go really wrong but still have a really good competition. So I think really understanding the variables that are in front of you with the program and the person is what's vital.
And so how does that manifest itself in the actual program or the delivery of what you're doing? Like, you mentioned data pooling, like, are you tracking metrics? Are you planning like 6 months in advance, 12 months in advance? Or is it really like a month to month, week to week kind of thing? Like, how does all of this, you talk about consistency and mindset and sacrifice. How does this actually manifest itself in the product that you're delivering, like as a coach?
I now do longer term programs roughly in my head on where I want things in the block and the block following to go. I often write out the block before on a data sheet before we've done it, depending on the person and depending on the person's needs. Some of my clients simply don't need it. But others, it's very, very like every data point's put into sheets so I can see what's traveling. And with more of the more data you get with the total tonnage, average intensity, peak intensity, and work volume, the better you can predict outcomes. But in saying that, that's when that athlete needs to be like, what they say, locked in, dialed in.
What the cool kids say these days.
So yeah, but I don't like, it's that, and then balancing that with the needs of what someone's saying to you. It doesn't matter if someone, this is a true example for me. It doesn't matter if I know that straight sets are going to work better. If they like ascending and they're like, I want to do ascending, then they do ascending.
Because by wanting it, that'll actually make it better anyway.
Yeah, and I just got to suck it up. You know what I mean? Like, that's, I'm not going to force anyone. It doesn't matter what level. You don't want to force someone to do something. And I think that's something that there's no difference between someone who's at a high level and like a novice intermediate. The program still needs to fit in with their lifestyle. It still needs to fit in with what they enjoy. It still needs to fit in with what they find achievable.
You mentioned to me as well that movement competency is very important to you, and having people's technique dialed in and getting those like foundations right.
Yep.
How are you doing that face to face, and how are you doing that online? And is it different? Is there a different approach? Like, I presume, for example, a lot of the online inquiries you get, they're coming from people that are very competent, right? Like competitive, have got a bit of a background. Does it vary when you've got people that are coming in person who might be maybe more local and a little bit more beginner, and how do these things change, and how does it again manifest itself in your delivery?
Well, I don't do any face-to-face anymore,
Okay.
so I couldn't tell you that. But the face-to-face is mostly done by the EP guys, so usually like there's something going on with movement. So with the online, I guess you're asking me what I'm looking at with movement competency. Is that correct? Or
Yeah,
what
like you've referenced movement competency, and that needs to come before like adding and changing, and I was curious as to like what you meant by that, and like how does that actually, what does that mean
it's
to you?
it's also it's always quite individualized when it comes to that, right? So if someone comes to me and they're like, I've got right-sided lower back pain, and then on the first squat I see them just shifting right into that right side, I'm like, okay, fix this first. Do you get what I'm saying? And like, it's like, well, you'll get during the initial or just before it, I'll say, can you please send me your last squats set of 5, or a squat bench set of 5, like something, just sets. I'll ask for. And I will look at that, which will help me to judge where I think I need to start with someone. And I'm very big on layering on the accessories in a way that the accessories are there not only to build muscle, but they're also there to make sure that we're looking after the major joint movements in powerlifting, which aren't many. You know what I mean? So you just got to be able to extend your hip, bend your knees. Same with your elbow. If you can't put your arms over your head and you're a powerlifter, you probably might want to do some shoulder press. That's pretty much as far as it goes, and it's making sure that those accessories are layered on for that individual person in a negotiable and non-negotiable manner. So a negotiable manner would mean, I want bicep curls. Okay, cool. All right, sweet. Let's put some bicep curls in there, but they're negotiable because we can take them out whenever we want, right? So, if you're telling me you got sore elbows and you're bicep curling 5 days a week, I'm going to probably bring it down to 3. Sorry, but it might be that someone consistently cannot hold their hinge with a deadlift, and they're a sumo deadlifter. Like, you probably know this quite well yourself. You're a very upright sumo deadlifter, so hinging is probably super important for you. So that's your non-negotiable, right? That's how I look at it. That's it. Anything deeper than that, I believe, is out of my scope of practice now. Even though I'm an exercise physiologist, I don't practice in it. Therefore, I have lost those skills that I'm looking at when it comes to problem solving anything major in pain. And I'm okay with that.
How does your EP background like present itself as a powerlifting coach? Because most powerlifting coaches don't have that EP background. So like, I was going to ask you actually, how does that?
It actually hindered me at the start.
Wow. Okay.
It really did. It hindered me, and that was going back to that conversation that I had with Steve. I was too focused on making movement perfect that I would strip it back way too often, and I wasn't using the variables of frequency, intensity, volume well enough in my programs, that I needed to forget about it for a while, and that's why I did. I forgot about it, and I focused on being a powerlifting coach, which is when I really started to excel. When I started to really stop thinking about what's wrong with people and start thinking about how I can get them really strong. Not to say that the pendulum swung all the way back to everyone getting injured, because it didn't. But for me, it is able. I'm able to manage things via accessories. I feel because I think about accessories in a movement plane / joint action way, and I think that any powerlifting coach can do that without having an exercise physiology degree. But I think just really understanding those concepts for me do help a lot when I'm prescribing accessories or changing accessories based on a niggle or a pain, like elbow pain or
You can give us an example,
pain.
like how does that?
Okay, so I got a client yesterday. It says he's getting patellar tendinopathy, quadricep tendinopathy. Heats was his third block of training with me, so I hadn't really seen all the joint angles. I said to him straight away, send me a squat from the front. Straight away, I was able to see that he doesn't have enough tibial IR, which means his quadricep tendon is getting pulled into ER, So I'm able to prescribe him an accessory that's going to help him to promote pronation, because that's what's happening. That should be able to get rid of something that would blow up if it wasn't maintained.
That's awesome. Like that's such a easy, good case study. Like that someone can be like, wow, okay, that's the kind of knowledge I need to have.
Yeah, that stuff. Yeah. And then sometimes so an example would be someone like Meg. I don't even try to fix her. She sees Tom. So because I can't, the program is set, no change. No, you cannot change the way the program's set. It's been very structured for 4 years, almost 5 years now. It's not the same, but everything has a purpose. And at that level, if you take out the 4th day of squats and put in belt squat, it can go horribly wrong really quickly. And coming back to the baseline of when it went horribly wrong takes longer. Takes way longer. So it's like, don't change my program. You need to work around what I've got in there. Whereas if I was trying to do both for my brain, I'd be like, no, overload city.
Yeah, so
and I think that's been a detriment. It's been a detriment too, because I've had people come to me wanting me to don't understand that I have a limit with how much I can problem solve with coaching, and they want me to do the rehab as well as the coaching, and I just can't. My brain will not work that way. I've tried. It's too overwhelming for me, and not because I'm not good at either, but because I'm hyper-focused. Me get you strong now,
I want a couple of things. One, I just want to highlight what you said there about Meg, because I thought that was so fascinating, because a lot of our conversation, you've talked about, collaborating with a lifter and coordinating and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. But I think Meg is a good example. So for those following who aren't familiar, Meg Scanlon, she's the one I lifted at Sheffield, extraordinary lifter from the US. When someone is at that level and is that motivated and has such high aspirations, it sounds like you can be a little bit more strict and say, no, this is what you have to do. Everything in the programs are non-negotiable. And of course, to an extent.
She's also the ascending set person, mate.
Both. Oh my God. That's fantastic.
Ooh, and that is it is come on. But okay. I'll do it.
Yeah,
but I'll do it.
I guess the difference between straight sets and ascending sets is probably not as different as the difference between swapping out a squat variation to a different thing.
Yeah,
that changes things.
Yeah.
And so when you've got someone who's that motivated, you've got to be like, no, you've got to do things this way, because everything is so well measured, and we know this formula works.
Some of the things Tom gets her to do are absolutely ridiculous, because she's got this right hip that just, sometimes it's good, and then it just will, be like, it's not working now. And he gets her to move it in all different ways, but she'll do it every time, and she'll do it, and she'll do it, and she'll do it. But in saying that, we've been working really hard to take things back and zoom out.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I want to double back to is you kind of talked about how at the start of your coaching kind of experience with your EP background, you're stripping things back.
Yeah.
And I wrote down the term overdiagnosing, maybe trying to find every fault. And then at some point you kind of had to let that go a little bit and realize that those things probably don't matter as much, especially if you want to make people stronger, and you have to have some tolerance for deficiencies, I suppose we could say, some sort of asymmetries or some sort of movement inefficiencies. And there are a lot of people, a lot of lifters and clients who are neurotic, right? Who want everything to be perfect, and they're stuck squatting 80 kilos for freaking months on end because they're afraid to load up. And that sounds like a transition that you have to have in terms of your approach and mindset.
I just with those people, there's ways you can do it. I just bring it to attention. I had a mentoring call with one of my athletes the other week, and he was saying that deadlifts felt heavy, and I said, let's look at the data together. We sat down, looked at the data together, and I said, well, these deadlifts look heavy because you haven't progressed your secondary over three blocks, man. So being able to do it together is a real big thing for me, because then he's learning. Because a lot of them are also a coach, right? So you're explaining to them. So if your deadlifts are feeling heavy, there's 2 reasons why. You're either doing too much or you're not doing enough. So let's look at the numbers. So we look at the numbers straight over 3 blocks. Nothing's been progressed because he's got too technique heavy. And I said, okay, cool. So are you filming every set? Yes. Stop.
Wow. Cool.
Yep. Don't film every set. I want you to film 1 set. I want you to send it to me straight away. I'll let you know if something's going on. I want you to load it the fuck up and let's go.
Mm-hmm. And that same advice might not be applicable to someone else, but in this context, it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so focusing too much on technique. It's like so funny, right? Because everybody wants a blanket answer. I want a blanket answer. I want you to say something that's so definitive that someone listening can be like, yes, that's the way it is. But clearly the answer is, and I think this is why I love doing this podcast, is because almost everyone says it depends, right? With one person,
Yeah.
they're too technique heavy and you're like, dude, stop recording your sets and just load it up. And then probably in the same day, you've got another client who is loading it up too much and they're not focusing enough on their actual quality. And you're like, dude,
Yeah.
slow it down, drop the weight 15 kgs and let's actually nail this execution. So
Yeah.
it depends and everyone's different.
Yep. That's it. I think there's a lot of things that go around the fitness industry in general, right? Like a classic one is deadlifting with a rounded back. Deadlift with a rounded back, you're going to get injured. Like you personally, you're a great example. Your deadlift technique is absolutely fucking beautiful. How many
Thank
times
you.
have you hurt your back deadlifting in your life?
Plenty.
Yeah.
Plenty. Notably a year ago when I freaking couldn't qualify for nationals because my back
Yeah,
was exploding.
exactly. You've got amazing technique. You know what I mean? But something else could have led to you just hurting your back that day. You could have been underhydrated. You could have been under a lot of stress. You could not have been sleeping very well. You could have just misgrooved it and pushed down the wrong way. And because you've got a really snappy deadlift, hurt. That's it. So I think with that, then people get in their heads like, oh, I can't do that third squat day because if I do that third squat day, I'm going to get really tired. And if I get really tired, I'm going to get injured or I'm not going to feel good, you know? But like it's sport. You might just have to do a third day if you want to get stronger.
Sometimes you've got to not run a risk, but I suppose it's all a calculated risk, right? Like you can't predict everything, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit before about how, at the start you'd done a couple of comps and then you kind of really shifted your focus on to your coaching obviously now and your business and perf. What's your relationship now with training and powerlifting? Are you training actively? Is it something that you enjoy? Have you got a disconnect from your own lifting? And
Big time,
I guess my
yeah.
next question is like, where does your passion for coaching and powerlifting specifically, you've got a powerlifting gym, you're running comps. It's like, where does that all come from if it's not from your own personal training experience?
I've always been in sport and trained and enjoyed being in the gym. It has gone up and down in my life depending on how much effort I'm putting into other things in my life, which has always been to the detriment of my mental health. So for me, training is 100% around feeling good and feeling good about myself mentally and physically. Like if I don't go to the gym, like at the moment I'm struggling with foot pain, like it's just, for me it's about health. And as I said, back in 2022, 2023, I wasn't going to the gym. I was too busy. I could not string a week of training together and it really affected me. So when I went through everything back in 2023, I was like, right, I'm getting back into the gym. And I train at a gym, like a 3-minute walk from my house, which is a really nice gym with a personal trainer 3 days a week. And when I started with that personal trainer, I had to look around for someone in the area here that doesn't know me, which was difficult. I'm not trying to I'm famous, but it's small.
You're a little famous.
And I just walked in and I was really lucky. He also has ADHD and he's really, really chilled. And I just said to him straight away, I was like, some days I'm not going to feel really good. Some days I'm going to come in and I'm not going to want to talk. Some days I'm going to come in and be like, I'm really tired today. Some days I'm going to be like, yeah, let's go. So all I need from you is to be empathetic if I'm having a really crap week and I can't get there. And then just adjust in how things are going with me. And it's been great. I've been training with him for 2 years.
Cool. And what's that kind of look like? Are you doing barbell lift? Is that like something that's interest to you? Or are you like, no, I want to disconnect from powerlifting in that way?
I do barbell lifts. I do not do deadlifts. I hate them. So
Don't worry, I'll do some deadlifts for you. I'll cover your
I
deficit.
just can't. I can't deadlift. I've never been able to deadlift. I'm scared. But I'll do lots of hinging, lots of RDLs, lots of back extension, all that stuff, just to keep things strong in the right areas, lots of dumbbell work, cable work, cardio. I have to do cardio. I do cardio 3 to 4 times a week. If I don't, I will really punch somebody.
Lose your mind, yeah. I was going
Yeah,
to say,
lose
but
my mind.
punch someone else's mind.
Yeah, so I like to keep it like that. I like short, sharp sessions where I'm getting sweat in the morning. I train this morning, and then it's done, it's out of the way, because by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, my brain is just too mushy. Yeah.
And so, like I said right at the start of the conversation, like your entry into powerlifting and your result in powerlifting is very different to the trajectory of a lot of other people. Was your passion for powerlifting just a result of the experiences you had coaching people, helping people? And like what, I mean, I don't really even know how I'm trying to word this, but I guess like for me, it's like, I know powerlifting changed my life. Like it was so important to me. It built my confidence, built my physical strength,
Yeah.
obviously, introduced me to all my friends. And so I feel like as a coach and as a gym owner, I'm like, I want to give that opportunity to other people. When I have a new person walk into my gym who's never done powerlifting before, I'm like foaming at the mouth thinking like, dude, you're going to experience like the most life-changing 5 years of your life. Like this is going to change everything about who you are. And I want to impart that on you. So I'm curious as to like what your like, I guess like mission statement is, or like what motivates you and makes you so passionate about powerlifting.
You know what? The funny thing is, for me, it's not really about powerlifting. It's just, I could have coached in, I could have, it's just
Could have ended up being
coaching.
anything.
Yep, it could have ended up being
Kind of just fell
anything.
into powerlifting and now you do love it, but it's could have been anything.
Well,
Yeah.
it started being exercise physiology. So I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I just want to rehab powerlifters. And then I ended up going full circle back to it, because I found that I was good at it. And it's not something that I was like, oh, I want to. And I think that's different now. It's like, oh, I want to be a powerlifting coach because I'm good at powerlifting. I didn't get that. For me, it was like, oh, I really enjoy spreadsheets.
Nerd.
Nerd. I think it's just like,
That's
I think it's
fantastic.
just my way. I think it's just my way of helping people, to be honest. I think it's just my way of helping people. And because, like, it is, exercise physiology is a degree where you can go in so many different directions. And I know it sounds really like, I don't want to make it sound up myself, but the whole business where it is now, I never saw it going like this. It just did. And now it's like, all right, now I've got to commit. But that was a
Now you're so
couple of years
deep.
ago, I realized that.
Yeah, now you're so
But
deep. You're like, oh well.
it just did. And I honestly don't think it's my love for powerlifting. I think it's my love for coaching. And I'm really starting to learn how to coach my employees, not just like coach them through getting better at what they need to get better at, not dictating and being like, do it this way or do it that way. And I think I just really enjoy coaching, and I really love sport. Like if I could have another life, what would you come back and be good at? I'd be like, I would be good at a sport, like really fucking good, because I'm really fucking shit now.
If you
You know
can't
what I
do it,
mean?
if you can't do it, teach it. They say, oh, isn't that
Yeah,
the
that's
saying? So,
right.
yeah.
I would be. I would love to come back and be really good at something, like really good at a sport. But then that comes with its own detriments too. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't like powerlifting, competing. I hate pressure. I hate it. I don't mind pressure at work, but not when I don't feel out of control. But I hate competing against other people. I just don't like it. It
Yeah, yeah.
makes me
So
feel
in
really
your next life, you
uncomfortable.
need to learn to love pressure and also be like 6'1" and
Yeah.
maybe you can play rugby or something. It's been a great chat. I do want to round out with one last question that I do have that I've been thinking about as you've been talking earlier, talking a bit about mental health and how important
Yeah.
your own training is for your mental health. And, you have to find a trainer that you can say like, hey, be empathetic because some days I'm not going to be 100%, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
I have no doubt that manifests in your own coaching. And I mean, you even explained it a
Yeah,
little
it
bit before about
does.
being empathetic, understanding that not everyone's going to be like a freaking robot towards their goals, and you have to understand, blah, blah, blah. On the other hand, like I said, you coach some very high level lifters, both, in Australia and overseas. And there does have to be I guess like there has to be a balance between being soft and understanding and empathetic, but also pushing people and knowing that by pushing people, it can be detrimental to their own mental health. Like, you know,
100%.
like you said, there are sacrifices, man. If you want to get to Sheffield, if you want to win a world championship, that doesn't happen with work-life balance. You know, you can't get
No.
to an open world championship gold medal, training 3 days a week and walking your dog, spending time with your wife or husband or family. Like,
Yep.
you kind of have to sacrifice a lot. And if someone is showing potential, improving at nationals, winning nationals, and they say, I do want to get to the next level, but you know that that's going to, you know, with your experience, right? You've seen it. You know that that's going to be costly. How do you balance those conversations? How do you kind of warn someone and say, man, if you want to get
I
there,
don't
you can
want
get
them.
there. Okay.
I don't want them. I don't have those conversations.
Okay.
Like you'll have the conversations if they want to be brought up. So like a great example is that athlete who you know that they need to push harder, and you know that if they want to get to their goals, they're gonna have to get there. But I like to let them come to that realization, and I like to let them have that journey. And if it means that we then have a conversation where it's like, they're not working hard enough, we have that conversation, and then sometimes that's led to them leaving. You know what I mean? Because the conversation came at the wrong time. So I think these conversations need to come at the right time when the athlete is ready to talk about it and when what they're doing. Because self-reflection and ability to self-reflect on your training and on your program doesn't just come with, oh, I'm self-reflective. You have to go through that process with that athlete, and sometimes that takes years. So I don't think pulling them up and being like, hey, this block was shit because you're not working hard enough towards your goals, that's not a productive conversation. A productive conversation might be, let's sit down and have a chat about how the block went and realign ourselves on what we're doing here.
I guess, like my follow-up then though is, I guess like a lot of times like newer lifters, or I don't want to say newer, but maybe less experienced, experienced enough, they've gone to nationals, experienced enough, and they want to take it to the next level, but they might be naive and not understand what it's really going to take. And they might, lifters will say things. They'll say things like you said before. I want to improve my total by 150 kilos in 6 months. Or I want to win nationals. And it's like, okay, in order to do that, you're going to need to really step up your game. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to make those sacrifices? And, as a coach, when you know your lifters so well, sometimes you know that this is not a good idea. It's like you're already bordering on burnout, and to turn things up, you might want that, but I don't think you realize how costly it could be. Are you having these conversations with people, or is this again like up to them to kind of figure out? And they've got to make the decision for themselves. They're an adult.
It depends.
Good answer.
Sorry.
It depends.
It depends. There's no blanket statement for that, man. Like the reason why they're not working hard enough could come from a million different things, and you can't assume that they're not working hard enough because they don't care. Because they care, they wouldn't be paying you if they didn't care. So it's just finding the root cause of why they're going through this or putting too much pressure on themselves. And I'm also, as I mentioned, mindset skills. I'm a big believer in that. And I have no qualms in saying to one of my athletes, hey, maybe it might be a good idea if you go and talk to someone about that with how you're feeling. Especially if it is something where there's really a lot of anxiety around performance or doubt around performance. So I can't answer that with, I pull them aside and I tell them to pull their socks up. You know what I mean? It depends, man. Sorry.
No apologies needed. Of course, I think that isn't a valuable answer, because sometimes people will Google, how do I fix X problem? And there is no answer. Like ChatGPT can't tell you. You've got to, assess the variables, which is what you're saying, and figure it out. And everyone's a little bit different, and it comes with time. And coaches develop that intuition when they've coached hundreds of people over years, and you figure that out.
I think it's like being okay with being demotivated. I think that's a big one. Motivation is not something I need to get motivated to do the dishes. You know what I mean? I don't need to get motivated for something that I really care in. And I think that I'm not saying that every training session needs to be important, but it's like if you're not motivated to do the thing that you really care about, that is also okay. But it's just like, it's just at that point being honest with yourself that the last 4 squat sessions you've undershot, so that PR probably ain't going to come. Or you've overshot, so that PR probably ain't going to come. And that's okay. Like, there's another block to do it.
Yeah. I think that approach is, like I said, I think it's just so important for people to hear this kind of stuff because these are some of the lessons you only learn when you're in the trenches and you've gathered that experience. Hey, look, it's been freaking awesome chatting to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about Perth, what's been going on, future projects, what you're looking forward to in the next few months? Let's finish on some exciting stuff, and where people can find you and some of your details and how they can work with Perth and you guys.
Yeah, well, at the moment we're located in Bowen Hills, but we're moving to Tenerife earlier next year. So
that's so exciting. I didn't realize that. So how far is this move?
How far? The next suburb. We're moving from the top of the hill down to the bottom of the hill into what we call the bubble here, where it is a very high density population and everything that you can get is right here.
Awesome.
Moving down there, the whole gym's going to go through a refurb, which is going to be awesome. Really big push with the EPs. We have a few programs running at the moment. One of my awesome exercise physiologists, Tanya, has set up a program called the Core Collective, which is focusing on LGBTQIA plus individuals around the area to get them into exercise in small groups. So it's a lot of mental health stuff. So we're really working in towards the inclusive mental health space, community building, which is really, really, really awesome. I'm really enjoying that. That's pretty much it. Waiting for a Sheffield wildcard myself, hopefully, like stuff like that. That's it. And where they can find us, obviously Instagram, Perth, Performotion, at Performotion Instagram, or myself, kellymann_performotion.net is the best way.
Cool. I'll have all that details in the show notes as well. It'll all be in the description. Yeah, that's awesome.
Great potty, dude. Cool. I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you did. Yeah, and I think you had some interesting things to share. The funny thing is when I talk to someone who's got so many ideas and so many thoughts like yourself, it's like you're talking, I'm writing all these notes, and I feel like the conversation jumps back and forth between points, and I think my interviewing skills have to get better to keep it all on track. But I'm like, but then you said this, and then you said this, and then I'm going everywhere. But I think people are going to be able to discern some great info from that for sure.
Sorry, I jump around a lot.
No, I think both of us are jumping around, but that's part of the fun. And there'll be a certain group of people for whom that suits them very well, I think.
I want to do a podcast with a bunch of coaches that have ADHD and do it unmedicated. That would be so fun.
But then pop Ritalin halfway through and then just see how the conversation clears up as time goes on. That'd be great. All right, Kelly, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I know you said you're busy, you got a lot of shit going on. Good luck with your move. Thanks for your time, and I'll be in touch with you.
Thanks, dude.